All right, everyone, you may have seen the other day that Kanye West tweeted about Candace Owens, and the rest was history as there was a massive firestorm on Twitter of thousands and thousands of people, most of which were of a certain ethnic background, saying that she was a horrible person, a sellout to her race, and the usual stuff that you get it from social justice warriors all the time. You also get it a little bit from people that are actually on the far right. Like, they'll be like, if a white person isn't an identitarian, then they're a sellout and they're like horrible. And it's sort of like a modified Jesse Jackson or Al Sharpton line, just for people who aren't black. And so when you get one of these situations where someone defies, the false dichotomy, basically, now especially if they're taking money away from the legacy media in terms of having a good audience, doing political analysis, social commentary, and they're independent in so doing, the tendency is the legacy media will put out hit pieces on them for money reasons, aided by political forces and social forces that want to do the same thing for political and social reasons. That is, the average layperson, let's say a lay social justice warrior, will look at Candace Owens, probably authentically believes, well, just basically a race traitor. not to use inflammatory terminology, but that's basically what they're insinuating. It's basically what it boils down to. This person has the wrong views for someone who is female. This person has the wrong views for someone who is gay. That person has the wrong views for a white male. Essentially, other people seeking to sort of gull them into having certain opinions, whether or not they're reasonable or not, based on that sort of identity presumed. When people, therefore, resist that, it's basically, they get really, really upset. And that's basically what this boils down to. You have a mainstream celebrity, a vapid one, yeah, but a mainstream, quite popular figure. I may not like his music, but a lot of other people do. Praising someone who conducts political analysis while she is female and she is black, but she is also an actual conservative. Now, not an extremist, not far outside of the Overton window. We're talking a MAGA populist. This is the other thing that's kind of irksome to people, I think, that have a legitimate grasp of politics, maybe know a little bit more about ideology over time, about history, and about the use of linguistics and terminology, and certainly the deploying of propaganda. What irks me, I think, most is that more fire ends up directed at some random MAGA populist or someone who has like nativist leaning, someone who is not outside of the norm, who 20 years ago would have been considered a total centrist, a garden variety politically aware individual. Someone who is fundamentally normal is now considered to be extreme, number one, and number two, they take more fire than people that are actually outside of the Overton window, people who actually do have out there beliefs. Out there, of course, not necessarily being conflated with wrong. If you ask a communist if communism is wrong because it happens to be deviated far from the neoliberal norm, they'd say no. They'd say neoliberalism deviates from the true goal of communism. Well, you're going to hear the same thing from people on the further right. You're going to hear the same from an ANCAP. As a minarchist libertarian myself, I see that as, I don't think that would work. They do, though. They think anything else is abominable. As far as Candace Owens, when I see people saying she's a sellout because she's black and has the wrong opinions, I'm like, don't you hear how you fucking sound? Don't you hear how racially tinged you sound? You're sitting there worrying about people on the far right being racist. You sound like a Klansman, and most of these people, they're like social justice warriors, so they're not exactly white, straight, cis, male Christians. They deviate from that most of the time. If they are, then they're doing it for dating purposes usually. The same honestly can happen on the far right as well. So you have people like a Candace Owens or a million others do political analysis. They had a wrong opinion once, and so they're a Nazi. Or they're a sellout. They're a traitor to their people, so-called. It sounds like Al Sharpton rhetoric, really. That's really what it boils down to. And you got to understand, when people believe this, when lay people, people who themselves, they're not rich, they're not multi-millionaires, they are ultimately, they're poor, working class, middle class, whatever. They're normal people, American or not. When those people say and believe these things, it's because they've been indoctrinated by propaganda that was invariably engineered by people that are much richer and more powerful than they are. Members of the political and financial elite love it when people do this. It's like with wages, with jobs. If you can get the very poor and the working class to attack the middle and upper middle class, nobody's attacking the rich. And if any of those people that are attacking the rich, then you can undercut them. You can say, well, you know, you don't believe in equality because you're not focusing on the upper middle class being a little bit richer than you. Or you're a bad person because you're not targeting these welfare leech poor people and you're worried about the rich. We're not your enemy. And it's as always, it's the same groups of people that engineers. It's like war. Who proposes war? Not some random person. No, the people that go fight and die are random average individuals. The people who lose a loved one are random average individuals, generally speaking. Who is notably absent from those who have to fight? The rich people. You know, people with a lot of money. They've got 7 figures in the bank account, or their daddy was a senator, or their daddy is a governor, and in many cases. Something along those lines. And if they go into an active role at all, they end up like George W. and they sit on a military base and basically just train. They never see combat. Or if they're really unlucky, they have to get into a technical combat zone, but you know they're in the safest possible role. And trust me, the drill sergeant gives them the jelly donut and lets them eat it too. That's the way that it works. That's the way that it works online too. Independent commentators are being made the boogeyman of the corporate media. Now they're doing it for money. But they're playing upon people's worst fears. They're seeking to exploit their own propaganda has convinced people that there's a problem with a large and growing extreme right and left-wing movement, like society's falling apart. Now, that's not what I see. What I see is basically things remain unchanged. The biggest change I've seen is that the corporate media conducts a lot of propaganda towards us. You know, slightly biased there because, of course, I'm an online commentator with a significant audience. But when I get hit pieces thrown at me for being an extremist, I'm saying, this is wrong. It is objectively totally wrong. Any sane person knows it's wrong, and yet occasionally I'll see someone, they don't know anything about me. They've never seen a video of me. They didn't know who I am, but they think that I'm a Nazi sympathizer because they read it in BuzzFeed. They read it on the Wall Street Journal. Right Wing Watch told them so. They saw me trolling around and being liberal. So they just have it in their head that something is true it's demonstrably false. And so when people are saying, look, Candace Owens is far right, horrible person, it's like, yeah, I wonder if this is actually true. I wonder if I randomly selected a dozen clips of her talking, would I find this individual to be extreme? Would I find her to be an objectionable individual? Yeah, probably not. And Candace, look, she gets it from the further right too. Like I think there was that thing with Tree of Logic as well some time ago. I think that was Candace Owens that was involved with that. You know, and that became a big thing. And it's just a shit show. And this is just another reason why I don't get involved in like sort of the drama side of esports, basically, of blood sports or anything related to them. I don't want to be involved with that. I just want to cater to my audience. Look, when there are over 200,000 other content creators that want me to take part in personal drama, then you would be weighted more heavily than the audience that's already here. But unless you're unless there is a high frequency of you existing, and I don't think that there is, that's just not going to happen. As far as the mainstream media attacking people, she happens to be non-white and not a male. Ooh, she has to have these opinions, otherwise we find it odd. Basically, even those that aren't attacking her, if you look at the way they're reporting on it or commenting on it, they act like they've just seen like a pink elephant. Like they don't even understand how a person can be conservative while not being white. It's strange to me. Then what I think is strange is the way the corporate media can cast this and not get called racist by all those social justice warriors that are so primed to say that about everything else. You have the wrong toppings on your salad. You're a bigot. You know, this bacon is evidence of your patriarchal views. Something crazy like that. And yet they can't even see, I guess, the forest for the trees when it comes to the corporate media. That's about all. Peace out.